And we're going to say welcome to our Knit University, where our topic tonight is Ravelry, always a popular topic, always just a wealth of information that you can really learn about this fabulous site that we have as knitters and crocheters. And Kay is one of our administrators at KPS for our Ravelry page, and she does a really fabulous job. I was just telling my beginning knitters that I don't put any of my projects on because I don't have time or I don't make the time. But Kay does a really good job of that. So she's going to take us through it. We're going to do a screen share, and if you have questions, then you might raise your hand, because then you'll come to the top of my screen and I can call on you, so to speak. Because I know as we're going along, there's sometimes things you want to know right then and there. So you all know how to put your little question guy on under reactions. Then you can raise your hand or you can clap or whatever if you have questions. So Kay, you have the Zoom.
Okay, everybody should be able to see the screen here now. And what I have up is the website Ravelry.com. And I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with Ravelry, but Ravelry is an excellent website that's been designed for knitters, crocheters, also spinners, weavers, and dyers. And it has a large database, which I go to frequently for information on patterns, on yarns, forums, and groups. And there's also the personal side of it, which is the notebook side. And the notebook side is where we can do our own personal things. So if you do not have an account, the first thing I want to encourage you to do as a user is go to Ravelry.com. It's free to be a member. So you go there, it's very easy to create an account, and then you have access to tons of knitting information right at your fingertips. So if you're not on, consider that. So looking at the page, if you look up in the left-hand right, you have Ravelry in the red. And then you have your bar across, which gives you the information on the different areas. And we have information for patterns. We can look at yarns. We can look at community, and later in the presentation, we're going to look at friends and groups, because I'd like you to go in and friend our KPS projects page and also join our Knit Paper Scissors group, because that's where we have discussions. There's an area for support, an area to do your searches, and you can do the searches also not only with this advanced search, but also under the headings like patterns and yarns. And we have an area as you move on down for emails. So you can send out messages. Say you've got a pattern you're working on and you want to get in touch with the designer. You can then send an email to that designer and they can respond back. There's this area here that shows kind of what you've done. If you've had any posts or if you have things in drafts or other stuff that you've added. The notebook I love. It's where I put in my projects. You can also put in things that are in the queue, things that you want to maybe do. I myself have not really used that. I find my time is kind of limited, so I put it in areas that I'm going to get the most benefit myself from. Really good people get their yarn in here, their stash, so that anytime they want to see how much yarn they have at home on a certain type of yarn or color, they can look in their stash and see either how many skeins or how many yards, how many, whatever. The hand spun area tools, I do not use those two. My favorites I use a lot. That's where you mark patterns that come up that you like and work through those favorites. And then also the library, where you can save patterns and they're then in your library to pull up and use. So that's how the top bar is and how that works. So I'm going to show you a few ways to use some searching here. And I'm going to take you through and search for a pattern. So I'm going to click on patterns, and tonight I want to look for a new cowl pattern. So I'm going to just start out and put in, just to show you how much there is and how we need to filter down to get to a controllable number. If I put in cowl and search it, excuse me, you see there's 46,693 cowl patterns in this database. Excuse me. Now, this is way too much for me to be able to work with. So I'm going to go over to the left where you can do filters. And there's a lot of areas of filters available. You can see I already marked knitting as the one filter. So this doesn't even take into account all the patterns available to crochet. And then there's where they say here, should these filters relate? And if you say, you can say mark all of these. So if you want to match all, the more filters you put in, by having to match every filter, it helps you to cut down your number. So I'm going to make that match all. And you can go down into your categories. And I've already said cowl, so I'm not going to bother with another category. But say I don't want to spend any money on this pattern. I want it to be a free pattern. I'll mark it. And you notice then it's gone down to 12,505. So that's brought it down. And I still want to match all of these. I could say if I want a photo or not. And for this case, I'm not going to say I need it, but because most of the projects on here really do have them. But I'm going to go down to the attributes. And so I want this one to be a little more challenging. I want some color work. So you can see it's got 2,625 cowls that do color work. So I'm going to pick, since we just finished Embrace It, or are working on Embrace It Chill, which is mosaic, I want to do another mosaic. So I'm going to click mosaic. Now we're still matching all of these. I'm down to 147 patterns. A lot better than starting out with that 12,000. And if I come on down, I can say what I want to use. Well, I've been in my stash and I've been a collector of a lot of fingering. Excuse me, so I'm going to choose fingering. Now you see I'm down to 21 patterns. So when I scroll back up, here we have the 21 patterns that I can have in all of my criteria. So that's quite different than the 46,000 that we started with to the 12,000 that's free. I now have 21 that fit my criteria. I kind of like this slip away. So I'm going to click on slip away to see that cowl. And sure enough, I can see it's free. And it is done with fingering. And it's 6 stitches and 9 rows to an inch. So it would be 6 times 4 would be 24 to our standard 4-inch square that we look at, with a size 4 needle. And I need 300 to 380 yards. So if I know what I have for my yarn, I'm pretty much okay. It gives you characteristics here of how you're going to be knitting it. And this is where it pulled up for me, like the mosaic. And if I would have put in other characteristics, they would have come up as well. It tells you you can get to the free pattern. And then it gives information about the pattern itself. It's a fun mosaic cowl, perfect for even a beginner who's wanting to try a new technique. Okay. So, and thing, it looks at perfect for using up some of the half skeins of fingering that you have sitting around. Tells you your yarn and how much. So you get a lot of information without having to purchase a pattern, when you just look on here and the rest of the materials you need. So I like this one. I think I want to save it. So I'm going to put it in my favorites. So up on the top, we have an area here that you can save in favorites. Click on that. And it says you can put in your notes or comments. I don't tend to use that myself, but I do put in things down here under the optional tags because those I use them within my favorites to pull up. So I'm going to say this is a cowl. And you can see then listed here different things. These are different categories I've saved cowls as so far. So this one is a cowl. It's fingering. I'm going to click on fingering, but it's also a mosaic. So I click again, and here I've had fingering mosaic. If it's not there, you just type it in, because these are ones that I have used as tagging comments. So that's why they will come up like that. So I'm going to do cowl. It's fingering mosaic. I'm going to say yes.
Can, like, if I wanted to do it for one of my kids, can I make that kind of a tag, like say Sarah Project or Sarah?
I think you could. I think if you put in Sarah, I think it would, if you went back sometime and had her do a search in your favorites and put in Sarah, it should pull those up.
Okay.
Now, one thing I found that the search engine isn't perfect with Ravelry. So sometimes you put things in and you think they're going to be there and you have a hard time sometimes pulling them back out. That's just something with the search engine. But you notice now it says it's in my favorites. Now, this is in my library simply because I had it up earlier. But you come down here, I can go for the free Ravelry download. Since it's in my library, that's where it's at. So there it is, and I can download it. So you click the download, it will download it to your computer. So if you want to save it separately on your computer, you may do that if you want to print it out, but it will always stay also in your library if you've marked it to save in your library. So that's one way that I really like to do searches if I'm looking for a certain pattern. I tend to go on to Ravelry once or twice a day, just looking at the new patterns that have come up, and I tag ones I like into categories. And that way, when I've done that, I use my notebook and I go and I look at my favorites. So I could go into my favorites and I could say, I want to search through all of my favorites. I want cowl, I want fingering, and I want mosaic. Now we'll see if this one pops up for us. It should, we'll see. There it is, it's the very first one. And other cowls that I have saved in my favorites, these are just mine, things that I have liked, will show up. So you can see kind of where I've had things that come along, I've liked them, I've tagged them and marked them as a favorite. So it makes it easy for me to search for things that I've already seen that I like. Any questions on just doing a search for a pattern? Okay, I'm going to go on to searching for a yarn. And at the shop, we find ourselves going to this at times because you may come in with a pattern and it may say, here's a pattern, this is what it's knit with. It's not a yarn that we're familiar with. It's not a yarn we carry, but we're going to want to find out then, is that yarn, what weight is it? How many yards does it come in? If it's in a hang or if it's in a ball, what is that yarn like? So I'm going to go in to yarns. So we're back at the home page with our bar across the top. Select a yarn. And I'm going to type in here, you can find a yarn by name, brand, or fiber. Well, I'm going to go in and look at Rowan Felted Tweed. You can see I've used it before because it's down here. So I could just click on that. I'm going to search it. And Rowan Felted Tweed, you can see that there's a DK version, an Aran, and a super bulky. Well, I'm going to go for the kind of what I consider their standard, which is the DK. And if you look over, there are projects that people have posted in their projects, 34,405 projects that have been done with Rowan felted tweed. So let's go to that, because we can then go ahead here and we can do some filtering. You know what, I'm going to go back one more time, show you something else here. You see a rating with your stars. You can see that this yarn, when the knitters are done with the yarn in the project, you have an opportunity to rate the pattern and to rate the yarn. So with this yarn, it has about a 4.4 to 5 rating, which is a really great rating to know that, and it's been done by almost 7,000 people have rated that. So that helps me to know if that's likely a fiber I'm going to like to work with. If it's rated down in a 3, I'm not going to touch it. I want, when I'm putting my time and effort into these projects, I want to know that I am into that 4 to 5 range. So I'm going to go back to that 34,000 of them, and I want to do a search. Well, there's one color I've been interested in. That's a felted tweed, and it's Vaseline green. So I'm going to do a search. And I have 7 pages worth of projects that have used the Vaseline green. And that's kind of, if you have a yarn that you want to know how does the color look knitted up, how have they used it, you can find that. So I find that helpful to do. Now, when people come in with a yarn that we don't know and we type that in, going to go back. This is where if I click on my felted tweed, I get more information about the fiber. And this is what's really helpful. It has 191 yards and in its ball of yarn. And that's in 50 grams of weight. It tells you what the gauge is, so I know that's a DK weight, but it also tells you up above here that it's a DK. And you know what the composition of the yarn is and how it's plied and it's tweedy. Is it machine washable? Yes. This is helpful when you're looking at yarns and trying to decide maybe which fiber you want to use to see what the composition is. And sometimes I go and I look at projects with it just to see if the yarn is stiff looking in a project or if it has a lot of movement and drape to it, because what you're knitting may really require something either with more structure or else with a little more drapiness to it. So that's helpful to use. That's what I do with yarn. I'm going to go back to my top bar and we're going to look at community. And in community there you have forums, you have your messages, which also were on the top bar over to your right, people, so you can find somebody. So if somebody wanted to find me and look at some of the things I've done, you would just go to people, but we're going to go into the people and we're going to be KPS projects. You've come into the shop, hopefully, and seen our QR codes that we have on items. And those QR codes take you to the project, but that project is one of our projects on our KPS project page. So if you're not following us with that yet, take a note because this is how you would get to us. Community, people. So we click on people and we can search for people. Well, our people here is KPS projects. So you would type in KPS and you can see I put us in before, but you would type in your KPS projects and search. And here you see us, KPS projects. we have 83 projects and we have a forum post there. So let's hit KPS projects. We'll select. And here we are. Now you can, if you haven't been a friend yet, it should ask you if you would like to be a friend or whatever, and you can do that. But since I have already, it says here in my friends. And it also says I'm in one group. In other words, the KPS projects is in the Knit Paper Scissor group. So we have this here, and we can come over and we can get to favorites or projects, all the projects. Now you want to see something that we had in the shop. All of them are listed here under projects, but one thing we've done to make it easier, if you look on the top, we have a favorites as well. Click on favorites. And we have everything that's our favorites or bundles. The bundles is what is helpful if you know, I want to pick out a hat. And I've looked at the hats, so let's go to the bundle. And you'll see the groupings of bundles we have. So baby child, there's 6 items. Our beginning knitting, we have 3, and that's the 3 different cowls that go along with beginning knitting. We have 21 different cowls, and we have 34 hats. So you can go in here and say, which one of these hats did I see that I really liked and want to do? Our newest one we put on is the bristlecomb. So let's look at the bristlecomb. This is in here because at the shop, we have entered in the projects. And we've told you on the project page what yarn we have used or what yarn to use. So the bristlecone, and we can get to the pattern right here. When you have the pattern and it's underlined, you can link directly to that pattern. So I'm going to link to it. So here's the information about the pattern itself. We're going to go back to our project page. So you can see to do this, the needles we used, how much yarn, and what did we use? And that isn't right. That changed it to over 910. This one shouldn't be here. This one is what it is. Except though you could do it with clover. So
No, Kay, I think hers comes up that way.
okay.
Because if you look at it, it's a right yardage 480.
Okay.
And it's 90-10, but not the DK, but her other, that really should be Lazy Bee sock yarn. But when we tag her, that's how she's got it listed.
Okay. Okay.
In her world. Nancy
Okay.
has a question.
We did say though, this hat could be done with DK weight because the yarn fingering is held double for it. And if that's right, you could use the clover DK. It's an either or to make that pattern.
Nancy has a question.
When you go to look that up for KPS projects, does it have to be capitalized or does that matter?
No, it will come, it should come up just the small letters even. And if it doesn't, put it in capitals, but I know when I've typed it in both ways, it's come up. But if you have trouble, Nancy, with it in the small, make the KPS capital and the projects, the P capital.
Yeah, because I tried finding it the other day and it wouldn't come up for me. So I must have been putting something in wrong, and I did it both ways.
And there's no space, all one word.
Yeah, I tried knit paper scissors. I tried KPS. I tried a couple different things. So I must not have been in the right spot.
Okay, on this, you can see where it's saying that our thing is capital KPS, all capital P, and then smaller for projects. But it's as all as one.
Yeah.
And I would try that again.
Yeah.
But this is how you can go and find any of the things you've seen at the shop that you like, or say, for example, you just finished watching the Monday Facebook Live and Angie and Valerie were highlighting a new item. And I think today they had on some scarves. So you would keep going down through here. At Christmas time, we had our holiday hats and the things that were merry and bright. But then we come to scarf shop models. And Angie was wearing the Aria scarf. And again, you can go to that and get the information about it. Hopefully you will find this as something helpful as you are working on projects and looking for ideas and things to do. The next thing I want to show you out of community is going under community and going to groups. So community, and we're going to go to groups, and you can see the groups here. Since I'm in my own project and my own page, you can see I have knit paper scissors down here as a group. But if I am looking for a group, let's see, go on down and it says search groups. So if I did not have knit paper scissors, I would do a search for that. And so I would do knit paper scissors, and I would search. And here comes knit paper scissors. And if you notice with this, it's the capital on the knit, the paper, and the scissors, and no spaces in between. So note that for how it's listed here. If I click on knit paper scissors, this gives you information about the group. And I could leave the group since I'm already in, but if you're not in the group, you should be able to click here and be able to join the group.
Nancy, Nancy,
Yeah. Hello?
you have a question?
No.
Yeah. Okay, your hand's still up. Okay.
Oh,
Nope.
sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. No problem.
Okay, so we're on knit paper scissors as the group, and some information that Angie has in here about the shop, the hours, new people that have joined lately is kind of listed, and then the discussion threads. So when we start new projects, we'll have a discussion thread and ask people to go ahead and put in information, communicate with each other if they have questions. I tend to look at this site, I would say mainly once a day, to see if there's any questions that we need to address. So I'm going to go to Embrace the Chill. And since I'm the one who's on here quite a bit, you'll see that I've got comments, but here we have people that have shown their project, where they're at with it, posting a picture. And I really encourage our knitters and crocheters to become a part of this when we have posts that we do have information on and share with the people. See, here's someone who finished theirs and put in some narrative about doing the project and what they liked with it, what they maybe learned with it. I can go back. We always do one with our Huscal. Little hint, I can tell you there's been times where we've said people that post on a certain day, we're going to have a drawing for a prize for someone who's been involved. We did our Huscal, our 2020 Huscal is on here. 10 pages worth of responses. From starting from the beginning all the way through. So please feel free to join our group and become a part of that.
Kay,
Yes.
how do you put the pictures on there?
Okay, let me go back one.
While she's doing that, you know, there's two things here. There's Knit Paper Scissors as a group, and then there's KPS projects. So we would have loved to put our KPS projects under our group or our store page, but Ravelry isn't set up to do that. And I really wanted to play all of our projects would be on Ravelry too, so that you could go look at those. So that's why we have KPS projects. So there's really kind of two things. There's KPS, the store, and that's you join the group that way. And then the KPS projects you'd be a friend of, and or just search, and then you can go find our projects there. It was just our own little workaround to be able to get our projects on Ravelry. I just wish they would have that. They would have that with the store, but our patterns, if you go under our KPS patterns, then you would find our patterns that we published in there, but that's not all of our projects. So
okay, so I'm right at the beginning of the Embrace the Chill knit along. And here at the top, you can, you have the different things you can search and go to. I'm going to say reply to the thread. And so here I can say, here is my Embrace the Chill. And then up here, you can click on for an image. So I like to have my, put my projects in, because after you have a project, you can go ahead and use a project or a stash. You can upload it from your computer, or you can upload by email. So I'm going to choose a project. So here comes up my projects. And I have to go back to some of my older ones, but it's going to maybe be a while to find that one here. Getting close, I think. I say that.
so these are in your project page.
These are in my projects, right? These are ones I have in my projects.
So the word about this is you can pay $5 a year and be able to just upload it. So I said early on, I don't put my projects on. I just don't take the time to do it. But if you do put your projects on, I think Kay's going to show you that in a minute. If you do put your projects on, then it's free, right, Kay?
It is, yes. Okay, here's
But
my.
if you don't want to do that, you have to pay $5 for the year, and then you can just upload them like you would from your computer, how you might do with any other kind of posting.
Okay, so I click on that. Do I want to use this photo? Yep. And you'll see here it has, what do you call it? The address for it. And I'm going to post reply. And there it is. So when you're into that, where you're doing you have to always say you want to do a post a reply. And then when you have that narrative box, I'm going to show that here again. Right in here is the rectangular image. And that's when you click on and bring your photo in. So it can come either in from your projects, or it can come in from another way. Okay, I'm going to show you now how to add a project. So I'm going up to the bar again. I'm going over to my notebook, and you can see this is my page, because there's my name or my picture, and information would be there. So I'm going to go into projects, click on projects. Here it shows projects. So you see all of what you've maybe put in. I'm going to add a new project. So over on the left, you have to add a project. So I'm going to add a project. I'm going to name it. So it's knitting, and you can choose, you know, if it's a crochet project or something else, you can change that. Naming my project, I am doing Bernie's socks. And the pattern name is the same. And some people then, you know, I might say, if this was a sweater I was making for my granddaughter, I may say Lucy's cardigan for naming my project, but then I'd have the name of the pattern below. So Bernie's socks, and I'm going to click on that, and sure enough, there comes up Bernie's socks. Here's my pattern. I'm going to choose that, so it will link to it. There we go. Made for, I could say if it's going to be for somebody or for me. You can link it to the person that's involved. If it's a sweater or something, the size made. I really appreciate it when knitters and stuff, when they put their projects in, if they really would say the size they made, because a lot of times I look at a sweater and to see how it fits on people is I will look at what size they had, and if they have a picture wearing it, it really helps me decide a little bit if I think I need to go up a size or down a size. So just for other people, plus I like to go back myself sometimes if I think, did I want to do that in a medium? Did I want to do that in a large? What did I do that time? So you can add those things in. With socks, I'm doing the small, because sometimes socks have a small, medium, and large. And then I'm going to come over here. It's in progress. And when I'm done, you'd mark finished, or there's been a couple that I've hibernated or frogged where I've done a project and got partway through and didn't like it. So I've just taken it apart. You can give your happiness index with it and your progress. Well, right now I can say I'm about 25%. I started these on Saturday, so that would have been February 13th, 2021. And sometimes I'll just put a month in or whatever, but I do find I like having dates in there. And then when I complete them, I will put that in. Come on down. And you see here, needles. I can add my needles. And for this project, I am using a US 1, and I'm also using a 1.5. So I can do another add needle, and I can do a 1.5. So I have my 2 needles, and when I'm done and measure my gauge, I can put my gauge in here. I find that helpful because if I use a certain yarn quite frequently, and with socks, then I know I'm at 32 stitches and so many rows and 4 inches. And what was the pattern for the gauge on the pattern. Next, I'm going to add my yarn. And in here, I would put in, I used Lazy Bee. And we should come up here with the ability to.
You might have to have a space.
It might need a space. If it doesn't come up one way, try it another. There we go. And here we have Lazy Bee. We have some different choices. The Clover 90-10, the Yarn Charm. Angie, which one for sure is that one?
I think it's a Yarn Charm sock.
Okay, we'll say that. Click on it, and it automatically will fill in your information here. So it tells me it's got 420 yards and 100 grams. And I can put in a colorway if there is one. With this situation, I'm using a kit. So I will go down in my notes and say something, but I purchased it at Knit Paper, Scissors. And usually if I put in Knit Paper, that gives us the opportunity to choose Knit Paper, Scissors. And I choose it. I can, if I want, put in my purchase date and the amount paid. It's unusual for me to put that in. Some little things are best kept secrets. And if I want yarn. If I'm doing different types of yarn, I do that. But if I say, for example, I wanted to put out each one of the yarns that's in this kit, I would do copy and add another colorway. And if you do that, it simply repeats the information and you just put in your colorway. So it can save you time and not going through the rest of everything else. Then you do project notes, and I like to put notes in here to myself. So I'm going to put in my notes, I cast on 64 stitches with a US 1. And then I put in after ribbing, I switched to the US 1.5 and started the charts. And because this is a stranded pattern, it has you going up some in your needle size because stranded is tighter than your stockinette. So I'm doing that. And then I'm just getting ready to start my heel, but I'm going to type in knit. I knitted it 6 inches from cast on to the start of my heel. That way, when I go back again with a pair of socks, I've done this where I have a pair that the fit is so perfect for me. I go back and I look at what did I do for my formula. And then I know what stitches with what yarns I really like the best. So that's where I keep my notes. It's important. You always come down and save your changes. And I have found that by doing my projects and my notes, there have been times other people have come along and have said, I really appreciate the note you put in because it helped me with the project. And sometimes the more notes you put in, they're good memory for you, but they do help other knitters out there. So that's how I would go and add a project. So,
Hey, Kay, there's one other thing. If you go to that groups page right there, where the little yellow box groups,
yes,
it says share with group. The
yes.
drop down will be knit, paper, scissors, and it's all, there you go. Click. It's all the groups you're in. And so what I love about that is when you go back to the knit, paper, scissors page, you can go see what all of our customers are sharing, all of their projects that they're working on. So right there it is. You can view all those projects, and it's super fun to see what everybody's been working on.
See how fun? Now, that's what I had for things that I wanted to share tonight with you. If there's other questions, I think Angie can identify them.
What things have you guys run into that, you know, was frustrating or was confusing about Ravelry, or anything that we can help you with? Kay can help you with.
I had a question. Sometimes it's hard to find the actual pattern. Does that mean it's just not available?
Okay, sometimes when you go to a pattern, you will have it there and it won't have any links. Sometimes it's because the pattern is no longer a pattern that is available. Some people have taken selling of their patterns off of Ravelry and have gone to doing it on their own personal websites or through their blogs or forums or whatever. But a lot of times if you're in a pattern, I'm just trying to think of pattern maybe to pull up. Let's see. Let's just look at the Bernie sock. It's here, it's published. It says it's published in the Ravelry store. Sometimes they will have somewhere else that is published in, and you can click on that to get to some of their links. I have had some patterns, I've never been able to get to them. I have some patterns I found that I really like, but they're not in our language. And you will always find they will tell you, not on this one. I'm going to see if I can find one pattern I like that I really.
It's frustrating, Becky, because inevitably that'll be the one you like. And then it's like, I think we haven't really mentioned this, but when we're looking at projects, looking at patterns, you always want to look at how many people have made it. And so sometimes it's a new pattern, so it won't have a lot. But I showed in my beginning knitting class at 6, a hat pattern done by Knox Mountain. Well, there were 385 people that had made it. So then we know that that's going to be probably a pretty good pattern. If they've got 12, then I'm going to give it a second think before I would purchase it and or make it.
And here's kind of an example. Here is a log cabin winter knit along. And you can see over on the right, when Angie talked about the amount of projects, it's had 5 projects. Well, part of the reason why, it's a gorgeous shawl. Language is available, German. I do not speak German, and I have quite a couple patterns just to look at them by doing translation. Knitting kind of has been lost in translation, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's kind of helpful. And a lot of times you'll see them in multiple things. And you also see here, it's actually originally in euros, and to convert it to American dollars, you have your price there.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You can buy it now, or you can visit the pattern website. So a lot of times you'll see where they have maybe a website to go to. And I get to her website. Wouldn't be successful for me because it's in German. So that shawl is up there not because it's one I'm likely going to get to do, unless they would change it to English, but it really gave me some kind of nice ideas for some colors and stuff.
Great,
Good question. Other questions? One of the things, Kate, would you go to maybe the calic sweater that we're going to do as our knit along? This was something that was super helpful. I think those notes, I mean, when I think of all the notes and sticky notes I've written on things and then they fall off, or the patterns I put down and then I have to go back to them and I don't even remember what needle because I took my needle off. I just think that this would be a great tool to really get in the habit of doing. So this is our sweater knit along that we're going to do. You can see there's 205 projects. So if you click on that, then let's say I'm working on this project and I have a question on the sleeves. You can go up into the search and type in shorten sleeves. So Kay's going to type in shorten sleeves. And then hit the search button. There you go. There you go. So then right here, anybody that wrote something about shortening their sleeves comes up. And then you can go on, and here she goes. Use the German short row at shoulders instead of bind off, kept all shoulder stitches live and knit the lace panels on using saddle shoulders, shortened body and sleeved. It's what Kay does really well when she writes her notes. And so if you're into a project, like the Noro Heart Curion blanket, when we did that, when pandemic hit and we sold the kits for that, I went into all those projects of that blanket, and there were some really great tips about working on that project. So if you're going to, I don't know if that'll show up, but Noro Heart blanket. If you're going to, if you're really thinking about making a project and buying, some patterns are $10. or you're making it with cashmere yarn and you just want to, it takes your advanced work that you do will pay off down the road. Let's see if this comes up. There it is.
Mhm.
And so if we look at that heart blanket, there's 189 projects done of this heart blanket. And I went into those 189 projects, and right here, the beginning one, it says I did Fair Isle instead of Intarsia. Then she talks about that. Love making this blanket during the pandemic. You know, it's just fun to read about what they would do and what they would not do. And you can see how she shows a really good job of showing all of her projects along the way. Because you can upload pictures as you go, right, Kay?
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that where I have done some blankets that have had big hexagons where I have taken a picture of each one of the hexagons before I put it together. And I gave ideas on how I did blocking since it was a hexagon shape. And it's amazing the amount of people that responded back to me personally to say, you know, they found that helpful because that was something then they tried when they made the blanket. And so, you know, it's a chance to really help other knitters out by making notes.
Very good. Anybody else? This has been great, Kay. Wow, I learned something every time. We can never teach Ravelry enough, it seems. So we'll be doing it again on Thursday at 1, if you care to set in on it again. And we record both, and then we kind of see which one we end up with. And we'll be posting them next week on our YouTube channel. So then you can go back and kind of fast forward, listen to it again, get any information that you would need. So this is our final Knit University for now. If there are other topics that you're interested in learning about, we'll do it again. Let us know, give us some feedback, and we'll be happy to do some more education. This has been really well received. So, okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Stay warm. If you get up and your lights are blinking or your clock's blinking, it meant you were in a rolling blackout overnight. So it will be spring. I mean, we know in the Midwest that spring does come, but boy, what a winter it is. It is chilly. So thank you always for participating and your support and being on. We'll see you the next time.
Bye.
I
Bye-bye.